What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Corey Austin Theorem. So, just wanted to give kind of an update. I am 44 days off of 7-hydroxy at this point. Not going to talk a lot about this. At this point, it's kind of just small incremental changes every day. I don't have any more physical withdrawals or anything like that. Any of those subsided, at least over a couple of weeks ago now. It's still, sleep's a little bit off. I'm still, waking up probably more often than I would typically in a natural sort of state. And obviously still having a little bit of kind of, I don't know if you call it boredom, a little bit of lethargy. Every once in a while, I'll kind of get a feeling of a little bit of low mood sort of thing. But it passes pretty quickly. And I will say that I have noticed my energy getting better. Now, I don't have what I lack more so than anything, and I think this is something that takes a little while to come back. And also too, let's be honest, it probably one of the reasons that I took substances is because I liked the way it motivated me and gave me drive to do certain things that I like to do, or to just get things done around the house, projects, whatever, right? That was one of the upsides to using for me. And it could be that now I'm just kind of seeing my natural baseline as a person. Maybe I wasn't extremely motivated. Maybe I struggled with motivation. And that's one of the reasons that I had such an affinity for these substances that gave me energy, gave me drive, gave me motivation, that sort of thing. So, that, you're kind of looking at a cause and effect. And I am open to the fact that maybe what I'm feeling is not necessarily my drive not coming back, because I think when we look at that, a lot of times we look at that in conjunction with and running parallel with the kind of drive that we perceived that we had while we were using. Okay? What we have to remember is the kind of drive that you had while you were extremely high on some sort of substance, whether it be kratom or 7-hydroxy, mostly what we talk about on this channel, but there's other things, there's stimulants, there's cocaine, there's Adderall, there's all these other different things that can give people drive and motivation. For some people, it's marijuana. I used to get super driven, on marijuana, and I was the opposite of how they say it makes you lazy, makes people want to sit around and just play video games and watch TV. That was not me at all. I smoked some weed, bro. I would want to get up and do stuff. That's just, I would mow the lawn, clean the whole house, work on side projects. That's just, the way they affected me. But we look at them at our drive as running in conjunction with, we compare it to how we were when we were using. And, when we're a month and a half off of some sort of substance and we complain of not having our drive back yet, what are we really saying there? Are we saying that we expect our drive, our ambition, and our motivation to return to the same level that it was while we were using substances? That's a fair question, because let's be honest, it may never return to that, because that was not your baseline, right? That was a heightened version of what your drive, motivation, and ambition may have been naturally, right? So then we have to look to and seek to find other things in life that will kind of push us to have that drive. And, I think too, that a lot of it in the interim, and because we do know that it does take some time for your brain to return to baseline, right? And I'm only 44 days off, and I've seen a lot of literature, plus some anecdotal testimony of people on here who have been off for a while that I've heard multiple times. Oh, it can be up to 90 days. It can be up to 4 months. I've even read some professional sources. It can take a year. I've even heard up to 18 months for your brain to completely return to homeostasis, baseline, what it originally was before you ever began using the substances, right? Because for a lot of people, including myself, I mean, you're talking about years and years and years and years and years and years in the game of using substances to alter your brain chemistry on a regular basis. Okay? So if you've been doing stuff like that for the majority of your life, and let's say you have 20, 30 years in of constantly just using substances to alter, self-medicating to alter your brain chemistry, you don't turn around in a week and your brain has completely healed itself. It doesn't work that way. People want it to work that way, but it really just does not work that way. Now, physically, I'm feeling a lot more back to normal, and one of the ways I can tell that is because when I'm exercising now, I am noticing a little more ability to push. I don't feel quite so tired and exhausted. I don't feel like I have 20-pound weights on my wrists and on my ankles anymore. Now it feels more like maybe 2.5-pound weights, right? And then that, I think a lot is mental. It's just kind of the lack of drive, the lack of motivation. I don't have that oomph in my brain that tells me I want to do this and I want to give it all I have, because I have this, surge of dopamine from this substance that I'm taking, right? Because that's what the substances do. They increase dopamine, increase serotonin. They make you feel good, and you, under the influence of said substances, you can feel good about things that you really normally probably wouldn't feel good about doing. Let's be honest. I've shared the example before how, if you were on death row and hours from now you were going to be executed in one way or another, you would be pretty depressed about that, probably. I mean, I don't know for sure. I've never been on death row, obviously, but I imagine that's probably a pretty depressing feeling. Especially if you hadn't made your peace with God and, Jesus or whatever it is you may believe. I imagine that's a horrible, saddening feeling. My life is about to end. You give somebody a few opiate substances an hour before they're executed, I guarantee you it would change their whole outlook on what was about to happen to them. That's how powerful they are. Okay? So, it's one of those things where I think it ties back into being patient, understanding that you have to grieve the loss of what is your old self while you were using. You not only have to grieve the loss of that substance, and I had one of my other guys out there. I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants to be talked about, but he's right there with me, neck and neck, and we've kind of been talking back and forth a little bit on our channels. I think he's like a day behind me. He's like maybe 43 days or something right now off of 7-hydroxy. You probably know who you are, dude. And he mentioned on one of my other videos, he was like, have you noticed that feeling that you get when you stop taking something like that and you've been taking it for a while, that you almost grieve it, like you've lost a friend, like you've lost your best friend? And it wasn't the first time I heard that, but it's the first time I've heard it in a while. It's very insightful, very perceptive. And I could only say, no, dude, oh yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what it's like. Exactly what it's like. So you have this duality of you're grieving the loss of this substance, because this substance in many ways was something you really depended on and was like your best friend, because you had to have that substance before you really did anything else and enjoyed it, right? But then on the other side of that, it was killing you. It was killing you. And it also, at the same time, the duality that I spoke of is that it also made you the most miserable person on the face of the planet. You know, being stuck in that cycle of addiction with that substance, right? And then anytime you attempted to alter how you were using it, your body and your mind let you know in a huge way. You know, just with the depression, the withdrawals, the anxiety, just you name it, right? So I think that's one thing that we have to do is grieve the loss of that substance and grieve the fact that those ways that you used to feel on that substance, those days are gone. You're not going to have that anymore. Grieve it. Write a letter to your drug of choice. If you're coming off of Kratom, write a letter to Kratom. If you're coming off of 7-hydroxy, write a letter to 7-hydroxy. If you're coming off of fentanyl or heroin or pain pills or anything else of the sort, write a letter to that substance, telling it officially goodbye and grieving, allowing yourself to grieve the fact that you'll now not only never have that substance again, but how you used to feel on that substance, the drive, the motivation, the ambition that you perceived, that you felt while under the influence of that substance, for one, was not really you, right? That was your brain on steroids, basically. And just like your body on steroids has negative long-term consequences if not used properly, so does your brain on steroids, right? There are negative consequences and symptoms from doing that regularly and consistently. So yeah, that's just one thing that I kind of thought about that I wanted to put out. And then I wanted to say, I knew that the video that I did yesterday was going to be an absolute trigger warning. And I knew it was going to trigger some people. And guess what? I was right. I was right. YouTube never fails. Never fails. Or should I say the internet never fails. Never disappoints. Anytime you do a video that you think is going to trigger some people, it always does. And I've enjoyed reading several of the comments today. And you know, I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it. People hear something like that, and you get on there and you start talking about deaths, people who died from Kratom use. One of the things that stands out that somebody said was the 2 deaths that I mentioned died from Kratom toxicity. It's fake news, y'all. It's just fake news. I was like, oh man. And you know, it's interesting because listen, there's a lot of fake news out there. And I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist at all. But I am open to the fact that the powers that be, the higher ups, you know, people who are in, you know, general positions of major authority and control, are not always honest about things. And I do think there's a lot of this, especially when you include social media, and media in general. I do think there's a lot of this playing one side against the other so that those up top can get whatever kind of outcome they want for the foreseeable future, right? I do think that there's some of that. But, and I can tell you, as far as kratom goes and 7-hydroxy goes, this was a reputable news source that was talking about it. Not only that, there were multiple entries and multiple sources talking about the same thing and giving the same version of events. And you know what? It might be easy to say, that's bullshit, that's fake news. That didn't happen, right? Which seems really weird to put up a picture of a specific person with their child, by the way, pictures of this person with the child, and to just completely spread absolute nonsense, horseshit lies about this person and how they may have passed when none of it actually took place. That makes no sense to me. And you know what really cuts the rug out from under that argument of us fake news? That's just fake news. That's just the government trying to get it banned. Well, why the fuck do you think they're trying to get it banned? You think they're not making a shit ton of money off of it? Open your eyes, bro. I mean, look at alcohol. They're making a fuck ton of money off of alcohol every year, right? And also, millions of people are killing themselves every year over alcohol, right? I mean, if this was no more than the government or the powers that be identifying that something is harmful, something is bad, we don't want this shit out there where our kids can get a hold of it. Anybody who's supposedly 21 years or older, we don't want that. So we're just going to make up a bunch of stories about people dying so that we can then be justified in getting rid of it. If that was the case, do you not think they would have already done that with alcohol? Do you not think they would have made that decision about alcohol years ago? Especially given how many people kill people in drunk driving accidents every year, including themselves and their families, and all the people that die of liver cirrhosis and heart failure and all the rest of it. You're telling me that it's just something about this kratom, something about this 7-hydroxy. And I challenge you to think about the fact that, fuck that, at $40 a pop, plus probably $10 in tax on everything that you buy when it comes to that 7-hydroxy, the government stands to make a killing off of that. So what narrative are they trying to fit? What narrative are they trying to meet with getting rid of and making up stories so that false stories so that they can then get rid of and ban and or outlaw something like 7-hydroxy or kratom? What story? And by the way, I've never said that I do think 7-hydroxy should be banned, and that's from personal experience. And people can get in the comments all they want. Well, people are idiots. People are idiots. Listen, there's some people out there that control it. There's a lot of people that can't. A lot of people are just doing it to get high. And for all of those people, if you're either in denial that those heroin-like withdrawals that you experience coming off of it are just not real, or you've never tried to stop taking it and you don't know yet. But if they ban it and you end up having to stop, you're going to find out the hard way, just like other people already have, right? And I've been telling people, those people who think it's bullshit, it's fake news, or that it's not really addictive, it's just all a bunch of bullshit. The man is up there pulling strings, trying to get it taken off the shelf, just so all of you guys can enjoy it. Any of you that are thinking that, All you got to do is go look back through the last 10 or 15 videos of mine and see how many comments of people who have gotten nose deep in that shit and are desperate, clearly desperate to get off of it. If you are a person who can take 7-hydroxy several times a week and don't do it every day, all day, and not become dependent upon it and stuff like that, then good for you. I'm not talking to you. But there's an element of what's best for the greater good. You know, you think about something like Charlie Kirk. If you're a believer, the first thing people look at is, wow, what a loss. You know, this guy was a father. This guy had 2 beautiful children. His children are going to have to grow up without a father. I mean, it's just, you think about all of these things that just do not make sense and are such heartbreaking facts about his passing, and they're all true. They're all valid. A horrible situation. As a father and a family man, my heart breaks literally right in half for his wife and his kids. It's a horrible thing. If you have faith, you also can look at it in the perspective of, yeah, but now in martyrdom, how much more is his voice going to be amplified? How many people are now coming forward inspired by the words of the late great Charlie Kirk that are going to be pushing his vision and his narrative out into the media outlets more and more and more and more, even more and even greater than what he himself was doing. You understand? So, in a sense, even though this is absolutely horrible for his family and they are going to grieve his loss, and I feel absolutely terrible for them, if you look at it from a God perspective, you know, he looks at things in as a snapshot, a bird's eye view. You know, time only travels in one direction for us. There is no time for God. He sees it all in one snapshot, all of time, right? And how do I say this? As tragic as it was, it could potentially be for the greater good of humanity in the future. Because in his death, there's so many people that were inspired by him and by that abrupt ending of his life, that now there are millions of Charlie Kirks. Before, people were just letting him do it. Now, there's people taking up the torch. And so his voice now, and his ideas, and his ideology, and his narratives, political and religious both, are now amplified to the world. They were trying to clip him out and shut him up, but actually all they've done is amplified his voice. Okay? Do you think God was orchestrating that, maybe? I don't know. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. They always will be. I'm just a mere mortal, you know. But I think about that, and then I think about Kratom and 7-hydroxy. 7-hydroxy especially. And these people come and I had one guy say, oh, it's terrible that they died, but I hate that, you know, a couple of irresponsible individuals are going to ruin it for the rest of us. How do you know they were irresponsible? And that person who said that has probably had tons of moments of irresponsibility with Kratom or 7-hydroxy or whatever they take. I've had tons of irresponsible moments with those same substances. I'm fortunate enough to still be here because, like I said, everybody's rock bottom is different. Everybody's health is different, right? And so each person never knows what that rock bottom is going to be for them. There are people out there that have underlying health conditions and heart issues and stuff that they don't even know about. And then all of a sudden they start taking this kratom on a regular basis, and they just go downhill like that. And the next thing you know, they kill over, right? But try to stop thinking about yourself so much. Think about for the greater good, you know. And if there's people out there that really get benefits from like kratom, pain management, that sort of thing, let the FDA come in. Let them do some sort of regulation on it, so a bunch of 21-year-old kids can't just go in there and buy 5 kilos at a time if they want, and then they're just sitting there all day stuffing kratom in their mouth, and then that's how these deaths are going to happen, right? There has to be some sort of regulation on it. I'm not completely against kratom, the plant. It's not the plant. The plant's not the problem. It's the people. But the people will forever be a problem, because people will forever be irresponsible. People will forever do things in excess. It's the human condition. It just is. Okay? So when somebody says something to me, I hate for a couple of irresponsible people to ruin it for the rest of us, you're probably irresponsible with it too. Don't even play. Don't even pretend. What? Because you're still alive, you're always responsible with it? Because I'm still alive sitting here talking to you right now, I was always responsible with kratom or 7-hydroxy? You think that's how I landed in detox? Because I was responsible with 7-hydroxy? No. I was irresponsible. Irresponsibility with something like 7-hydroxy or kratom doesn't necessarily equal death. Right? And if that is a true dynamic that we must consider and ponder, then it also is safe to be said that responsible behavior with kratom or 7-hydroxy doesn't necessarily end in nothing happens to you either. You know, stop thinking about yourself so much. Start thinking about the greater good of people. Yeah, there might be a few people out there that use it somewhat responsibly. It doesn't really mess with their psyche or their physical health too much based on the way they're using it, that sort of thing. But when you drop those, I guaranteed, few people versus the large conglomerate of people who are using it irresponsibly and are just fed up with their use of it and fed up with how it is ruining their lives. When you put those two together, I guarantee you one group is going to far outweigh the other, right? And that's where this whole idea of, what about the greater good, though? The greater good, man. Oh, well, a couple of irresponsible people are going to ruin it for the rest of us. There are so many of us that have been irresponsible with it, and we're still here. So just because these people died doesn't necessarily mean that they are irresponsible with it. Just because you're still alive doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't irresponsible with it. Really shitty argument. Sorry. Really shitty argument. And yeah, there might be a few people that wouldn't be able to take it anymore that otherwise were using it, you know, somewhat responsibly. But I guarantee you, for those few people, there are 100, 1,000 times, maybe even 1,000,000 times, people out there across this world that are not taking it responsibly. Just is what it is. I'm home. I gotta go. Hope you guys have a great day. Subscribe to the channel if you would, like the video, comment down below, let me know where you're at, and I will see you on the next one. Peace, y'all.